So Josh, I know you're probably the only new one that's here. What we've been doing over the past 4 weeks or 3 weeks, I guess, is we've been dissecting different trails within Crown Point that we've received feedback from the community on what they'd like to see developed. And as a result of that, which came from 2 rounds of survey and then focus groups, is we developed this workbook that you see on the screen right now, which asks community members to go out and actually walk these trails and document any types of improvements or alterations they'd like to see happen with each trail. So we settled on 4 locations, the first being Mesa Trail, which is up by West Mesa Housing and the Water Tower. This educational trail between NTU and DC, Dene College, and then that one that goes to Bashes and pretty much everywhere. And then the old BIA track. And then today we're going to be talking about Teepee Trail. So the idea is to talk about each 4, developing each individually, because they have different skill, I guess, levels of difficulty, and will require different types of amenities. But the long-term goal is how do we tie them all together and then make them a cohesive network that benefits the community in regards to connecting community centers, improving health outcomes, etc. So.
Okay, sounds good.
All right,
this is the last, which we're really going to go into depth about.
And so we asked the community to complete the trail workbooks here and leave them at various places that we had put up some information collection points at the various trails. And of course, we figured we'd get some feedback, but it's a little limited, but that's all right. So as a working group now, the steering committee, we're going through each one of the trails, and the workbook asked everyone to look at trail surfacing, and we have a classification I'll cover in a second, and that's for benefit everybody, and just so we have a record of what we're talking about. So what makes a trail sustainable? It's how steep it is, the width, the side slope of the hillside, universal accessibility, surfacing options that we're going to cover today. The amenities we talked about are what makes it inviting for people to you want to use the trails for, whether it's for transportation or for recreation or for solitude, for contemplation. But we looked at some of the typical amenities that include shade structures, benches and seating, trash receptacles came up, pedestrian scale lighting, trailheads, is it parking, controlled access, walk-up trailheads, those sort of control points, and then also signage. Wayfinding includes directional signage, regulatory signage, informational signage, educational signage, telling stories about the area. And then the little map here kind of shows the 4 areas we covered. So then to quickly switch documents to, do we switch documents? Can you see this one on trail attributes on my screen now or not?
It still says the trail development workbook.
Okay. All right. So we looked at 3 different classifications of trails that seem to make sense for Crown Point Trail System to include. And so you would strive to have your formalized trail system represent these different types of class trails. And some of the guidelines and definitions, including use volume. So for example, the education trail gets a whole lot of use, and that may need, more improved surfacing to handle that amount of use, and have to be wider to handle larger traffic or wheelchairs or bicycles or strollers or what have you. We talked about trail surface materials. That's actually just the trail itself, not the shoulders, asphalt, concrete, gravel, dirt, or a stabilized dirt, or it could even be a rubberized type of a surface, like a high school track or a college track, or some of these playgrounds that have rubberized surfaces. We talked about trail surface obstacles. The more obstacles you have in the surface, then it's going to lean towards a natural primitive surface. And if it's obstacle free, it might lead towards a barrier free route. Tread width, depending on the amount of use, and we covered that a little bit here on the differences. Trail design cross slope, which is how walking on the trail, how steep is it from side to side, not from the distance, but I equate that to driveway. A driveway typically is 2% or a little more than 2%. And a driveway, when you walk through a driveway, your ankles kind of hurt a little bit because it's too steep. So you walk around those driveways. So that's a good example of what a cross slope is. And steep cross slopes are not good for both improved or barrier-free surfaces. And then we talked about what a sustainable trail. So you're striving for a sustainable trail system that's going to limit your need for ongoing maintenance or rerouting. It's going to limit erosion issues on it. So a sustainable route is the most important. And that's looking at, first of all, that it doesn't adversely affect natural or cultural resources or values. It can withstand the impacts of regular use of natural elements. So snow, wind, rain, hail, flooding. Requires only routine maintenance, so checking signs, checking for some loose materials. And then it encourages people to stay on the trail by providing a enjoyable experience. And one of the quotes that a lot of trail builders and planners use is that people don't need trails, the land needs trails, because we want to direct people to where we want them to go, and we want to direct trails to keep people from where we don't want them to go. But that enjoyable trail experience is the most thing. So if it's steep and ugly and it goes past a lot of undesirable areas, people are going to find a way around that. So our job is to make sure that what we're designing is the best route. It's what people are going to use to get to and from the different places for recreation or active transportation or the contemplation we covered. So we looked at these attributes here on the right column. So there's 3 trails: barrier-free, improved, and natural and primitive. And today we'll be making a decision on what we feel is the most appropriate classification for the Teepee trail. And we have determined that some trail loop systems can have a part of it could be improved, and then the rest of it could be natural or otherwise. So today's process for Josh and anyone new, and thanks for everyone joining us, we're going to look at the trail in Google Earth. Daniel's going to show queue up the drone footage of the Teepee trail, and then he'll cover the summary presentation of how the trail is being used, and basically on the community survey and focus group comments. And then any suggestions from additional community field work if anyone filled the workbook out for this section. And then we'll agree on the classification, and through Google Earth, we'll work through the problem areas that need to be addressed and the amenities that we need to consider for that, including connecting trails. So with that, we're going to switch screens. If anyone has any questions right now, or everyone is in. Is anyone in the waiting room? Looks like everyone's here. So we're going to go to Google Earth. So Josh, just to show you what we finished up last week was looking at kind of the BIA track and what could be a route on that loop road on the street itself as a pedestrian route. So we looked at that, but now we're shifting over here to the Teepee trail, and I just call it an anchor point, as one of the roads pathways that leads up towards the area. The other one leads over here from that church, I believe a church parking lot, 2 different routes up to this area. So looking at Google Earth, actually even the map even captures a roadway or pathway up to the point. And imagine this could be one of the jurisdictional boundary lines. That look right, Leonard?
Yeah, that looks just about right.
Okay. And then the trail continues on this route out to a little loop here. But it looks like the potential there's another kind of a cider closer to the canyon edge route here that could make for a loop part of this trail. So when we're looking at this today, we will look at how this neighborhood gets to it. Other ways that they're going to walk through, they're going to walk around as we improve sidewalk, thinking about this sort of things. So that is the Teepee Trail from the Google Earth perspective, and we can zoom in a little bit more on that. Questions so far, or comments, observations? We'll zoom in a minute, get some more of our anchors here. Daniel, do you want to cue up the drone footage?
What is the name of that road that's running by the Teepee Trail?
We'll pull that up as soon as the video decides to cooperate. Daniel, you're muted.
I'm sorry about that. You see from the very start that it begins with David and Felicia had documented it as being a 4.38 mile stretch. I guess that goes to the teepees. I've actually never been on this one, only up until the hill right there. But it's about 4 miles to get to the teepees as documented by them. Right here is where you would enter it from the church. It's a little beige brown church, and then you'll see all the different pathways that go up. So this is going to go up on top of the mesa. You can see right here where it's really rough, you'll see a lot of the erosion or the weathering coming down. But this is one of the main accesses that people use to get to the top of it. It's very steep as well, so I know that's something that's a big part of how we're talking about grade and whatnot, but that's something to consider right off the bat. This picks up from when you get on the top. Again, you got a lot of the trails coming over here to the left, and then you see it hugging this cliff. A lot of side trails again. If you had read the comments from the workbook, one of the individuals said that there's a part that's narrow and could potentially be dangerous. So there's recommendations of having some type of barrier or chain link or something that could kind of prevent any type of danger. But this was the area I believe they were talking about. This is it from another angle, kind of showing the narrowness of the trail. It's following up here. This is where you see it with the mouse. And again, that was only a basic clip. It didn't go the whole way up, probably to where the land barrier was. But it goes a lot deeper. Eventually, we'll probably have to try to get more drone footage, but that was just a very small clip. But hopefully, it really shows you the elevation, the how close it gets to the edges, all those different types of considerations.
So, Daniel, can you elaborate a bit on the comments you heard on this trail from the focus group, and then the surveys, and if anyone filled out one of the worksheets on Teepee Trail?
Okay. So you'll see the document for this session. This was from the very first mapping exercise in which we went to the different events within the community and asked people where they walk and to map where they walk. At the very base, you'll see that there was, I think this was a sample of 42 people. So about 1 out of every 4 people who did mark on the map said they've been on Teepee. You could see kind of the hesitation as you get further and further up that way, that there's less use as it extends to the top of the mesa. But this is the main route. You'll see that there was some hesitation along the main route. A lot of that dealt with cultural resources, saying there's pottery and different types of things that you don't want to, disturb. That was the main reason, but there were some hesitations from community members. We did receive an email this morning even, about, be cautious of hangout spots and kind of that unwanted activity that happens there, including dogs. So that's where a lot of the hesitancy was, but overwhelmingly it was a positive view. There was different connecting trails, I think, of accessing it down by the housing area near the bottom of it. So I haven't been on any of these trails either, but I know a lot of people have ventured in that area. I don't think they're as used or weathered as the main trail, but I'm sure there's people who know how to access them. So I guess it is a 4.38 mile act, but it extends a lot further. Leonard in previous meetings had mentioned you could go all the way to Mariano Lake. Some people have mentioned even going all the way to Dalton Pass. So it is a way of connecting individuals, not only in town, but connecting them between different chapters. Of those surveyed, about 33% of them had mapped. I'm sorry, that was from the mapping exercise. So that was the 14 out of the 42. 59% of those surveyed used Teepee Trail, while 41% have never used it. About 37% of those surveyed suggested Teepee Trail be developed first or second. Which was the last of the 4 trails. So I think a lot of that was from the feedback is don't develop it, leave it natural. But there was some feedback saying that there is a need for signage, maybe having curfews of when you could be on it, etc. For the most part, a lot of the feedback was they liked the wilderness of it, being up in the among the wild animals. That was a big part of it. They said that the vegetation is overgrown, but it is of high use. There is concern of animals. Was somebody who mentioned there was bear tracks and mountain lion tracks up there. They haven't seen Bigfoot, but or the howler, but wild animals like that were seen in the area. A big thing was access. So they said that the road from 371 to the post office is how you kind of get there. And you see a lot of people in the morning, but it's very narrow. One of the big things that a lot of people had mentioned was parking. So as we kind of scroll through these, you'll see that kind of it'd be nice to have some type of parking area or established where people can kind of know where it starts. But besides that, the main thing is scenery. That's what a lot of people like. They described it as $1 million view. One person had mentioned it's good to go up there for health reasons. All of those things kind of tie in with what we were discussing in the past. What is the history of the area? You could go up there and learn about the different types of things in regards to viewpoints too, how to solar play into it. And talk about the steepness of hills, which I think we saw from the drone. But that's typically what you'll see if you kind of read through all of these. There was some concern about safety, and does there need to be a call box up there? Is there internet service? What if somebody falls? That led to questions about liability, those types of things. Here's where that guy talks about the private property. And then not really having problems except for the dogs. But basically that's the running theme of all of these. It's a lot. It'd be cool to kind of go through, but you'll see that they have also made links to different, other areas, points within the area. So we had talked previously about Tall House. And once we get the hotel up and running, how do we connect them? you know, this could be a link towards that area because it's within, you know, distance. Here's where I talked about that cell phone coverage and needing some type of alarm system. I know bathrooms was mentioned. Somebody had talked about maybe having a picnic area up there. Maybe not all the way up there, but maybe the first rise you see. And then, you know, that's the type of feedback you'll see for teepees. We did receive a couple of them where they just kind of mentioned what they'd like to see. This one just kind of checked boxes, but the second one, you really see somebody who's never been there before. You know, when they were talking about perceptions, they said, wow, it was here all this time. How did I miss it? You know, they were raving about the beautiful views. There are some fun and challenging spots along the trails. It's a nice length and easy to follow without signage, although someone had left natural markers such as the stones. But this person really raved about it. You know, where they would put it, some money in was be like benches or public art. They like to see safety improvements, maybe signage with storytelling, and then maintenance and management. But you'll see again, zero would be contributed to trail surfacing. I think a big part of that is that a lot of the people wanted to keep it natural. But you know, I emailed this to everybody. All of these comments are really good. You'll get some good insight into things. You know, they even talked about graffiti. You know, what do you got to look out for? But that's basically the overview of Teepee.
Thanks, Daniel. Any questions or observations or comments from everyone in the audience?
So I used to walk this. Well, I walked this trail many times, and I know the parts where they're talking about where there's a drop off. I have a video, Daniel. I can send it to you if you want to use that as an example. But it's like probably a 50-foot drop. The trail is probably about 15 feet, and it's just a straight down drop.
Oh, wow.
What else? What I see is so I guess I'll just give my input. I never did one of those forums, but for me, as I live in the area, parking, of course, was brought up. A lot of people just park at the church, but I think if there was like a dedicated parking with like if we can do trash and restrooms, like a little almost like a rest area, I think that would be great. And then you guys touched on the at the beginning, it goes up the side of the cliff. That's a huge erosion. It's just going to keep getting worse and worse. So I think if we did fix the area, we have to put a lot of money into diverting all that runoff to the side channel so it doesn't mess up a road. Here and there, the trail does get narrow. It's okay for walking, but one time there was a mountain biker. I almost got clobbered. It was like a blind spot. I barely jumped out of the way because he was flying down the hill. So I guess widening would be here and there would be very good. And also markers, like Daniel said something about the natural trail markers with boulders. I really like the idea. One thing I would like to maybe see is, I guess at the beginning of the trail, you have your trailhead, like distance there and back, a map of what the trail would look like, and maybe along the way have like a mile marker, and maybe even add an elevation information as you go up. Of course, this would have to be done in like steel because anything will get vandalized. It's just crime is just ridiculous out here in Crown Point. So if we did erect or build something, it would have to be basically not what's the word, vandalism proof. Obviously, you can't. Obviously you can't do anything about graffiti, but if it can be something strong, steel, or even just a rock boulder itself, it can't be damaged. And that's kind of pretty much what I felt about Teepee Trail. But personally, I just think it's just parking. And like I feel wary parking my car at the church because I don't want someone to break in my car while I'm up at the trail. So I've tried to park on campus and walk there, but from campus to the trailhead, there's so many dogs. That's what really turned me off from exploring all these trails. Is these stray dogs will come at you and they try to viciously attack you. So when I do walk out, I always take like a bike pump with me that doubles as like a weapon, just in case these stray dogs try to come out. But that's kind of how I feel about the trail and things that we could try to do to improve it.
Josh, in accessing that, is this by the church the only place you've tried to, or is there other access points that you're aware of?
I try to go like behind the church. There's trails that goes to a retaining. It's like a retaining wall. Remember, they said almost broke and flooded the school that one time. There is a trail that goes that way, but as far as I could find, I didn't see a trail that went up because it is a cliff. It's very steep. I don't know if there is a trail that goes behind the church up that way. I walked that way, but the trail just curved along the contour of the cliff. There was really no way up. There might be a way up, but I haven't seen one.
Is my screen being shared now?
Yeah.
Okay. So we could probably go to a Google Street and flip this around. So you're saying that you think there's another route up this way that might contour up higher?
Yeah, I can see your cursor. I've walked that trail that goes to the right. That goes to the retaining wall for the community. A lot of bike trails that way, but I didn't see a way to get up to the top of Teepee Trail.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so I just play with as a point to understand. Let me close this one. So I kind of did just a little bit on this, just to point where the first bench is. And you can see the steepness of this trail starting here. We're at 10%, 16%. This is not very accurate because it's not clamped to the ground very well, but you can see that it starts getting steep, and there's points in here that are 20% and up. So we do have some steepness issues in here. And as you go climb higher, you're 16%, 16%. There's 20% in there. So this is showing that there's definitely some issues regarding grade on getting to a good little space. And then one of the rules the interesting, but you brought up the mountain biking. So one of the questions you want to ask is this trail compatible with mountain biking, or is it walking only? And do you think about setting up another, mountain bike loop and keep mountain bikes over that? So that's a management question we'll have to address here in a bit. If there's narrow choke points and there's places where people can fall off, maybe hikers and mountain bikers are not compatible, but that's a decision for you guys to make. So before we get into those amenities you talked about, Josh, is there agreement on classification of this trail? So we had barrier free, and then we had improved, and then natural primitive.
The primitive one, was that the Class C classification?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely C all the way. Only thing I would recommend that would be man-made are like maybe cable railing barriers, steel rope, because it does you can see it where you're to the right of your hand cursor. It does get very steep, and the drop off it's like 50 feet. You'll die if you get too close to the edge.
Is that over here? Do you know exactly where that is? I can point that out. Or is
so your mouse cursor, I guess to the right, you can kind of see it's kind of towards the right.
This seems to be a pretty narrow section here.
Yeah, but there's also another area. I see that yellow line on the map. Oh, yeah, it does kind of get a little close to the edge, but there's another part kind of towards the further up the trail where it gets really close to the edge. Like you're like, it's like 10 feet away. Let me see. So
well, I don't know if you work in, we have some stuff over here that's pretty sketchy.
Like that's the trail my dogs are walking on, and not even 5 feet, the trail just plummets down.
Oh wow!
So and you can kind of see the teepee rock in the background. So it's kind of more further up, but this is probably the most dangerous part of the trail.
Okay.
Yeah, the comment we received within the focus group was that bottleneck, once you get out of the mesa, there's a slim, that part gets near the edge. People who are inexperienced, when you get to that point, their vision isn't so good. And they don't want a guardrail because those suck. A rod in the ground with chain going across might be an option. He was saying he doesn't know how to explain it, but there's a barrier at Rice Canyon. I'm not sure where that is. Something like that would be cool. Something because it's cheap and effective.
Hey, Josh, do you work in Google Earth? Do you know the program?
Yeah. Do you want me to let me? Well, I think.
Well,
Let
if
me
you wanna send me a KML or just a point of where this is, I'll add it to our
Okay.
layer. So you can do that
Okay.
after our meeting, exactly where this section is.
Okay, and I can probably send you that short little video that I have just to.
Oh, that'd be good too. Yeah, we can add it to the folder here.
Okay.
So I'll do the line on this after we're done here, but we just agreed class 3 all the way. Do we see that would we want to have the trail terminate here, and we still want to include this lower loop, lower arm of the trail? Or is that the dangerous one?
Yeah, I think the trail is it breaks up into two areas. So where your hand is, that more faint line, I believe that's the trail I was walking on. So that's the more dangerous kind.
Right. So we could let people know that if you had an information sign here that cautious, this is an unmaintained, more hazardous route than this top route is.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So the more thicker is the main trail.
Yeah. It actually looks like there's one that comes this way here too, right?
Yeah.
Yep, that's the one. Okay.
Is that a possibility, or is that what they're developing for a bike trail? I know in a previous meeting we had AJ mention how they wanted to develop the mountain biking aspect of it. Do you think they could coexist, Josh, up there?
Yeah, so I would say it's pretty much straight, but there are a couple of areas where it's like a blind spot. Like the trail goes around a juniper tree, and then just those mountain bikers fly down this hill. I used to mountain bike on this. I used to fly down it. If anything, sounds trite to say, but maybe a removal or thinning of the trees so that way you can always have a direct line of sight. But they can coexist. It's just the mountain bikers go really fast on the way down.
Mm-hmm.
The only really issue was kind of towards the beginning, like after it narrows and the mesa narrows and it widens again. That's probably you can see there's more turns. That's where I almost got hit, but just that area was an issue.
So Josh, could you put in so it looks like you're talking about here or over in this area here.
Kind of where that yellow line is.
Could you put in choke points or constraints, choke points, other boulders to slow down the rider?
Yeah, just yeah, I can do that. I'll drop pins again.
I mean,
and I'll,
that is a mountain bike management strategy. Is to we kind of call those control points, choke points, where instead of a free for all ride, then you would make it more technical. So that would just naturally slow the riders down. But I also understand that you guys want a downhill experience. And this is kind of your downhill experience there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I've got some notes on that. Thinning trees, which is a good strategy so you can see a line of sight better. And there's also choke points to consider to slow down bikers. And that could be just boulders or rocks and strategically placed. So you got to wind them a little bit or a little climb or a little drop to make the riders pay a little more attention. And that's if there's consensus on that it's compatible for mountain biking and other uses. So we have some erosion problems over here in this area here, which I'll capture in notes because I know it's draining off here. And we've got all kinds of issues. And I walked this a little bit one time with Daniel, and I did see a need to have it somehow contour up and get a higher grade better. I actually would probably eliminate this section and think about a way to, connect this way, easier grade to get up higher if I had to reroute anything. So that's worth exploring, a reroute here to make it more easier for people to get up to at least this top area, this bench area.
Is it possible? I know we're keeping it all natural, but maybe within that first section, at least doing some type of improved grade or surfacing in order to at least really identify and let people know this is the mouth or the beginning of the trail, if possible.
Yeah, and you could close off, other things and do it correctly, or rehab areas, which, rehabbing a section takes just as much work as building it, if not more. And we usually get pretty lazy about that. And people throw sticks in front of it that, that no one's going to walk on that, but sure they will. So it's moving vegetation and rocks and trying to do a whole lot of landscape work. But yeah, we could explore those kind of ideas on having to really define the route to get to what point? Just up to here or up to here?
Well, I would like to see it possibly somehow bleed in whenever parking devices put in play. So, it's just kind of a nice entryway. Like if you think about Malpai out by Rema, they have their little visitor center area that's developed, but then they have the nicer trails that bleeds into the natural trail. Something that's works together. Parking lot area, a bathroom, whatever, if possible. Something like that. Leonard, you've been abnormally quiet this meeting. Do you have any input you would like to contribute?
Yeah, where the parking lot is by the Christian church, that building is a classroom for the Christian church. So if you're going to utilize that as a parking lot, you're going to need their permission because that is their track, their land track.
Yeah, I think I'd rather see you guys develop a separate parking area off this roadway. This is Chaco Boulevard, I think. Was that Sheldon who asked earlier?
Yes.
So this is Chaco Boulevard. So maybe there's a separate parking area. So there's not conflict between the uses here and that. So maybe there's enough to put a parking area for 6 or 10 cars.
That'd be good, but when you're getting onto the highway, it could be a little iffy because there's it is kind of like a slope and there's traffic coming over the hill.
Okay.
So you have to be careful there.
Let's go put a note there on that comment, parking lot.
Yeah, it really is at the peak of that hill right there. So it might be hard seeing what's coming up or.
Yeah, I got maybe issues with slope and visibility for a parking lot there, but it's a starting point. Or maybe there's a joint use agreement. We work with these guys, so that's a possibility. Properties.
If you're going to do a turn where it's going to be like a turn off or a turn in, right at that spot, you're going to have to work with the BIA and on a right of way or something.
Yep. Okay. And then I'm just going to put a little path here, just showing for purposes of a reroute. If this worked, then we'd want to do something that kind of goes like this to capture this other road to connect. And get rid of the steep part and rehab all this in here possibly, so it look a lot better. Okay.
You said you went that way with your dogs, Josh. Does that connect okay, or would it be difficult?
I've always parked by the at the church. I've never where the red line is. Like behind that, I haven't gone that way. Actually, you know what? Never mind. I have parked where the to the left of the hand where there's kind of nothing.
Right in here.
Yeah, just to the left of your hand. So it's
Okay.
it was easy. Yeah, right there in that area. It's just this dirt lot.
Who owns that, Leonard?
That's the Christian Reform track. See that there's a fence line on the south side. It tells you where the boundary line is. No, going east to west.
On the south side. Okay. The fence line here? No.
Wait, hold on. Let me see. I'm loading up Google Earth myself here.
Yeah, you should see it because there's a fence line there somewhere.
There's a fence line here too.
That could be it, yeah. Or maybe a little further down, looks like there's a line.
And this kind of appears to be a fence line here too.
That could be it right there. That may be
So
the fence line. It kind of like
there's
goes up northeast like.
So those trails below the mesa, those connect pretty easily to the trail. There's like a south of the church. If you go through the housing, I don't know what road this is. It looks like there's a little loop. That one connects to the trail. If you go further down where all the single wides are, there's a cul-de-sac. Wait, that's fenced in. Where the circular, yeah, that circular area. I don't know. I think that was pretty open to the trail system.
So you might need two accesses. I mean, you probably want to have a neighborhood access that wouldn't be advertised to anybody. That would be, barricade for vehicle use, but accessing here for neighbors. And then other community members, instead of driving through the neighborhood, could, park here and access it.
Yeah, just like a, yeah, just yeah, that works.
So I'm just going to put a trailhead marker and mark that as a neighborhood access. Okay. And we'd also need to have a road barricade there. So we have that kind of takes care of neighborhood access. And then we can think about this as a trailhead over here. All right. So what I'm going to need I think we're going to have to need from folks is, we know, I'm just going to probably change the color of this for red for erosion or something. We'll keep it just red for now. Okay. All right, how we doing? And any other comments out there so far? People thinking about other parts of this? So the video's going on someone's computer. All right. So,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Who's watching Charlie Brown?
all right. So thinking about all this other stuff in here, would that the goal be to kind of rehab all these other routes in here? Or do you see a picnic area in here somewhere, Daniel?
Well, I think it was they said maybe on that first ridge, but a picnic area might work in there as well, especially if we talk about bathrooms. Bathrooms was mentioned a few times within this area, in addition to the parking. They also made pretty clear that in this very first section that it'd be good to have the signs that said, hike at your own risk. Maybe having the curfew hours, the safety was a big part of this portion. The quote was, you can't really solve crime problems. Dogs are a nuisance, but humans are much more dangerous than dogs. So it's important to have information.
Can I quote you on that?
It's in the packet. I'm quoting somebody else. But, they were talking about maybe put up some hours, 5 in the morning to sundown, something like that, to kind of curb a lot of that undesirable action. And then we've always talked about if you have people using the trail, that will curb a lot of the crime or activity if people know that people are going to be in the area. So those types of things were really brought up within.
Okay. So we have a trailhead there.
I don't know if you provide. Yeah. 2 people talked about having a bathroom. If not, dig an outhouse hole, they said.
So, yeah, bathrooms are a nice amenity, but coming from the Parks and Recreation world, it's probably the most discussed topic on park development, park plans. Public loves them. Park and Recreation hate them because of the vandalism they get, water lines getting destroyed, toilets getting ripped out, clogged. So I think it could be an option only if you've got a dedicated source for maintaining and managing that resource, so it would be usable. I mean, it could be a portable one too, but someone's got to, you've got to have a contract to have that thing pumped and cleaned on a regular basis. So I think there's a lot of pros and cons. There's probably more cons to having public restrooms out in your community than there are pros for it. But we can definitely add it into the idea. Okay.
Right.
So the land status issue, I want to put a bullet out here where we have our yellow line, because that's the next thing on this list. Where did our line go? Here it is. Okay, so the land that is north of this line is
it
what?
tribal trust land?
The land north of your yellow line is the executive order, BIA.
Okay.
One thing that was mentioned during the workshops is if that first section up until where that land ends is first developed, it could potentially be used as leverage into showing, this is what it could do, and then develop afterwards. So if this was a 2-phase type of project, the recommendation was maybe developing up until this point and then finishing it once you get the support from everybody else.
So land status north of line executive trust or BIA, you said?
Yes, I think it was 3159.
And then land south is
Trust.
is trust?
land.
Okay.
Not
Wait a minute. So
donation.
land north, the line north of the line is trust land or south of the line?
North side of your yellow line is executive order.
Oh, executive
North.
order. Okay.
Yeah. Then downward on south side is Navajo Nation Trust.
When does it start hitting grazing land, Leonard?
It's still considered grazing land,
Like it's,
even
you
though
don't have to
there's
deal with
nothing to
individuals?
graze on. Well,
So they can
pretty
they can
much,
graze anywhere on this. They can graze
pretty
anywhere out
much,
here if they want.
pretty much anything that's not tract land, like the IHS tract land is right there on the west side of the Christian Reformed Church. And then the Christian Reformed has a tract land. Anything that's not tract land is considered grazing.
Okay, so then the what are some of the natural cultural sites out here that we need to be concerned about? Someone mentioned, one of the comments mentioned something, right?
Well, one of the comments says you see a lot of nasazibos. You see a lot of them, especially when it rains.
Okay.
They didn't really mention where that happens.
What's that,
Okay,
Daniel?
just along the trail itself.
Just along the trail, whenever it rains, you'll see different bowls.
So just shards?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the teepees themselves are then a natural geologic formation that are where exactly?
You just keep going south.
And they're visible from that point. They're up here then maybe, right? Up here?
Yeah, they look like
Oh, I can
teepees,
see where
but
your
they're
trail
rock.
keeps going out here. Wow.
Yeah, where your cursor is, that's where the teepees are.
Crazy. Okay.
Where the teepees at? You got to scroll more.
Keep going north. Keep going south. Where that circle is, it's almost right there. That's too far
Hosta
out.
Butte. That's Hosta Butte out there.
Go back in. Okay.
So that's
It's on the right there. Keep it right there, but take your cursor down. Keep following that trail along that narrow ridge. To the left. To the left. Your other left. Okay.
See that pile of rocks? That pile of
Yeah,
rocks.
looks like a lot of rocks right there. That's where your teepees are.
To the left.
To the left.
okay. Right in here?
No,
Yes.
right there.
Okay. Huh. All right. And do people walk out there from this point?
The trail goes up to there, and then from the top, there is still another trail that you can continue on, but it kind of like flattens out.
So we would not encourage people to go beyond this point though, right? This is the terminus of our managed trail is here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we wouldn't want to lead them to Teepee or Teepee Rocks.
That's where I go.
Well, to get straight to Teepee, it's not like, if I remember, it's not like flat. I had to like kind of climb some rocks just to get to the actual Teepee rock and touch it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
you can get like,
it's inclined.
you can probably get within 100 feet of TP route. You can see it, but if you want to actually touch it, you have to climb. It's more dangerous.
But there's a vantage point where like you wanted to take a picture, or we wanted to do
Oh,
a
definitely.
TP,
Yeah,
whatever.
that's selfie central right there.
Actually, that's where there's like a picnic ground. I remember there was pictures of some of the early boarding school students and staff that used to have their picnics right in that area.
Oh, cool.
Out here, way out here. Wow.
Right at the teepee area, yeah, there's a place kind of like an enclosed area.
Mm.
And that's
That
where
looks
you'll
pretty cool.
see some of those Anasazi toe holds and hand holds.
So it looks like there's been the vehicle access around the backside of it then, right?
That's a old drilling.
Is that old drilling site?
Uranium,
Okay.
uranium drilling.
Oh, man. Okay. All right. So not hearing consensus on whether the trail ends back over here at a little lollipop end, or we're going to let, say, it's unmaintained route out to another point. Which you can do. You could say that, the Crown Point chapter and partners maintain the trail, maintain this trail to this point, and this is an unmaintained route, or you look at main hazards going back this way. So maybe it's a class 4 trail that's unmaintained primitive, and then there's a class 4 unmaintained primitive route that could go out here to the Teepee area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would consider the whole all the way to the teepee as one trail, but you can break it off into 2 sections. The latter part would be like a more challenging.
Right.
Trail.
Yeah,
so we could almost say that class 4. Not, it's here. You can get here, but we don't maintain this route.
Right. And I think that's
because now you're getting into the wilderness area when you go to the teepee.
And I think that would fit in with our efforts into how do we divide these trails up so there's different degrees of difficulty when we're trying to keep in mind, fitness for different ages, different capabilities, etc. And if we maybe divide it into 3 sections, the first section being focused on the land, if we're able to negotiate with BIA, developing that, but then making it kind of low impact, kind of easier scale. And then that second section, would be the continuation of it once we get the investment from the community. But then, the third phase would be going up to Teepee, and then just kind of at each section saying, the difficulties increasing, be aware of this, this, and this, and then until you get to that point. But that could even be our tactics with motivation is how do we get them from point to point, Here you've probably lost 1,000 or 400 calories, keep on going, you'll burn another cheeseburger or 2, that type of thing is something that could be incorporated into it that we've discussed in the past.
Yeah, make it relevant, like you'll use bag of opinions or something.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting. So one of the things that is changing very much in the trail in the trail information world and trail signage world is, and I mentioned this before, is that we do not we're getting away from easy, moderate, and difficult trails as you do on mountain biking or skiing, and our job is back at the trailhead, back over here at this trailhead, the public trailhead, is to have that map of the TB trail, and it would say that this first section is an improved route to this overlook picnic area, and it's this wide, it's this steep, and there are no obstacles that a wheelchair could not go over. And then you would say from this section to this section, it's this steep, there are 2 obstacles that are more than 6 inches tall that may or may not be difficult for a wheelchair or, you know, a user. So you just say the obstacles. And what we're striving for is to the user themselves, because they know their abilities better than we do. If we tell them where the barriers and challenges are in the trail, then they can decide whether they can use it or not. So it's all about what we put on the sign and how we describe it. And the best example of that, I got a picture. I'll share with the group later. It's at Bear Lake and Rocky Mountain National Park, and it's a loop around this lake. And the interpretive sign talks about, you know, it's this 8% steep over here for 50 feet. There's 2 steps on this part, but you know, an average wheelchair user can go 3/4 of the way around, and then they got to turn back. Or if you're this challenge, you can go further. So it's about information at the trailhead sign and how we you know sell the system for people to use. So if we make an honest attempt at having, you know, the first section, for example, could be improved, and maybe there is a picnic area, you know, maybe it's up here. There's coming through the slot here up in there. Maybe it's up here, maybe it's lower, but we can do a much better job of educating users on what's available, and then we can design better trails in place. So maybe there's a picnic area up in here somewhere, right, Daniel? Up in this area? Is that what one of the thoughts was?
Once you get on top of the mesa or at the bottom, like the big thing was, you know, maybe once you clear that first barrier, or I liked how you said at the very base where it's kind of near the amenities and you don't have to have that steep incline.
So I'm going to just throw a couple of picnics in for the sake, and then tell me if this is a close enough place or not. Picnic shelter. Okay. So one could be in this area here, maybe. Is that right?
Is that too steep, Josh? Going first up? Or Leonard, is it too steep right there?
There's usually flag.
Let me see. I think at that first curve, at the yeah, it's almost like a 90-degree curve. That looks like a pretty wide open spot.
So right here.
Let me see. That's kind of it's a higher elevation. To your, let me see. Yeah, about shoot. I'm trying to look at Google Earth and Daniel's video.
Yeah. There may not be as much here as it looks like. It does look pretty rocky and steep, so maybe it's a higher place up on top a little bit, right?
I would say towards higher up on the trail, right where your hand is, right where that hand is. Oh, no. But before you go on top of the mesa. No. Yeah, keep going down on Daniel's video right before the trail gets steep. Yeah, in that area, right there. Oh, you back a little. Sorry. A little. See where it's almost like a 90-degree. It's like a curve at that curve. Yeah, where the cursor is. Yeah, that curve. If you look at Daniel's video, it's kind of a more open, flatter area.
Okay. Cool.
Wait.
All right. As far as other amenities, so we got trailhead access parking, directional signage we'll have to have depending on what we close off. But we know we wanted to have directional signage or informational signage at these points here. So I'm going to throw that in there. So that's going to be a sign. Here on which route is what.
Benches was something that was mentioned a lot too. So I'm not sure if at each intersection or decision point there might be a bench.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Let me just throw one in there. Maybe each one of these intersections, there could be a bench.
Are there any good?
We do the same over.
And if there's any good lookout points, Josh or Leonard, along here that's not too dangerous or close to an edge. We've been talking about those serving as contemplative spaces where you could kind of just sit and enjoy the scenery, or if you get a good view of something on this trail. If there's any points along there that you're aware of.
Well, tomorrow, I can probably hike this trail tomorrow, and whatever you guys get this information, I can take photos and video and see what's a good area, and actually study the,
Yeah.
I can do that tomorrow.
So what about this area as a contemplative spot out here where this area is, where it kind of loops around?
Yeah.
Would that make sense for a contemplative area?
Well, I'll have to see how far you can see.
You can see the teepees from here.
Yeah, you can. That's more. And with these seating areas, I would definitely do a shade as well, because shade is pretty non-existent on this tree. So if you want to sit down, you would have to build a man-made structure or something, at least for some shade, if you want to rest.
Agreed.
Yeah, that was something that came out a lot as well.
So, yeah. So our distance on, let me see what this, which one did I do? That one. So that is, that's a 4/10 of a mile long. Do you see a need for, so we probably need a shade thing here maybe, along with a bench and the trail sign. So that could be almost like a rest stop with shade. So I'm going to change that rest area with shade. Rest area. And maybe need shade out here at the end, right? Contemplative with shade. Properties. Okay. And then any shade back on this other part going back? Maybe when you're out there, Josh, you can get a sense of when you think people will get hot and tired.
What was that?
You might need more shade. So I could see. Yeah, so maybe you can, if you want to play with, when you walk this tomorrow, if you want to save some points, if you're working in Avenza or some other app, you can just save some points of where you think shade could go. We see erosion problems on the trail, and then send them in to me. I'll add them to our master map here.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Where I'd recommend maybe some picnic tables be put to is at the upper right part of that mesa where you're grabbing right now, and to the right, right there, right. There might be an area where there's more recreation type of stuff. This is where the person had mentioned it'd be nice to have something where you could go up for family gatherings or something, in addition to the one that's on the bottom. That was just
up in here then, right?
Perhaps, yes.
Okay. Okay. So what about interpretive educational signage on this thing? So is there going to be something about looking west and how this route connected to Mariana Lake and to other places? Or is it, historic connections that way? Is that a story you want to tell? What stories did you want to say along this trail for, it's part of community knowledge, community storytelling, community history?
Well, Leonard probably knows more about it, but I know kind of where we are looking to the right, you might be able to see Tall House, which is the ancient site. And then I know that people talked about looking east and then seeing Tohatchi. You can see as far as Tohatchi up here. So I'm not sure where those exact points are. Even Leonard had mentioned there's some cultural sites going towards Teepee. Maybe there's more opportunities on that bottom part of the trail.
Along the trail, you'll see some I think it was some Hogan, old Hogan, and old Corral.
So I'm thinking a wayside storytelling, we can determine what that is, could also be at this kind of major intersection here. It seems to be a logical place to have some information. So interpretive.
Leonard always talks about the history of the area, and it's not just Navajo, it's, the ancient people, it's the present time. And I think along this route, it would be nice if somehow you can kind of talk about each of those layered histories. So if somewhere probably towards the start, you could see where the old boarding school compound was, or where Crown Point was first developed, I think is in that northwest area where that housing was. So maybe there's an interpretive sign that talks about that. And as you go up further, you might see that Hogan with the corral. So here's, stepping back into time. And then once you get up to Teepee and you see the footholds of the ankle, then that could be another one. So this could be like a walking through time interpretation trail. If you kind of see the present, the boarding school era, the Hogan Navajo inhabitants, and then to the ancient people, that might be a good interpretive way.
You can actually enlarge some pictures and put it into a glass frame, and then it describes a little bit on the bottom, but that picture can be kind of like on top, like the old boarding school. You can put a picture of it, but explain, kind of a little bit of history on it. The same way with the boarding school that's by the BIA track, because now you don't see it, but there are pictures of it. The same way with the Tarring House. And talk about the roads. There's a road from Tarring House to Muddy House site that goes right by the Christian Reformed Church, east to west. And that's one of the main reasons why we have a lot of Anasazi sites in Crown Point. It causes barriers for our development, but but there's a highway that goes through there about 1,000 years ago.
So maybe when we do our walk,
you should be able to see that pretty well, across, right? Looking across.
Yeah, you can see Tarring House.
Okay.
Kenya.
All right, so before we move on to other things, let's hear from others who have been quiet so far. Some of our UNM folks, any thoughts, comments so far?
I just had I know someone had mentioned that there's pottery, Anasazi potteries that show up on the trails. I think for me, like, I don't really know what the I guess the cultural teachings are about pottery, or if it's considered, I don't know what people would think about finding pottery on the trails. I mean, I think it wouldn't be a big deal, but I'm just kind of curious as to if some issues came up about that, like what would be done to get clearance for it, or and so forth. I'm just kind of curious about that.
Good question.
Well, there's not a whole lot. There's pottery all over Crown Point. There's specific areas that they have features and they have some ideas, mounds. I know IHS on the north side gave up some land because of that. And then some houses were taken down on the east side, the west side of Crown Point, because there were some sites underneath some buildings. But all over, you'll see pottery. Actually, on the south side of the teepees, the actual teepee rocks, about maybe half a mile, you'll see some Anasazi steps on some rocks. They look real cool. If you look at my Facebook profile, I do videos on certain areas, pictures. I'm going to do one on that site. I'm not going to disclose the area so that people will go there, but I will show it and I will explain a little bit. But on the south side, on about half a mile, there are some Anasazi steps that they made, and it's still pretty detailed. Because from Kinya'a to Hostelview, they had a road that was built, and you can see part of it. Even in aerial pictures, you can see it, a road going from Kinya'a towards the southeast.
That's so cool.
I can go on, but as far as shards, they're all over the place, but they're just kind of like not really dense.
The one person who really mentioned the need to address this stuff, his name was Alvin Whitehair. He's a district ranger with the U.S. Cibola National Forest Service. And he just mentioned that he's fine with it, but he just wanted to point out that there is a lot of archaeological sites or those types of artifacts. It'd just be important for us to be mindful of the clearances that are required. So
yes, it's not just Anasazi or Nasaza. It's Navajo defensive sites. You'll see them all along the ridge on the south side of Crown Point, all the way going to Dalton Pass and Borrego Pass. You'll see some of these polygon sites, some what they call pablitos, defensive sites, stone sites. So they're all there.
So I guess the to address that question a different way, maybe it depends on who the users are of the trail. So if Crown Point invited hotel guests who may have no affiliation with your community on Teepee Trail, then you'd probably want to have a leave no trace message, leave what you find message at the trailhead so people know the importance of leaving all artifacts behind where they found them. It's okay to pick it up and look at it, but put it back in the same place, the same message we would give at Chaco or Yellowstone or anywhere else. If you're not addressing, if this trail is not going to be used by non-Crown Point residents or Navajos, then maybe you need a different kind of messaging for that.
I think as the they don't really want to bother with those. They just leave it as is, unless you want to have nightmares.
Well, except it, my office here is at Chaco, the Chaco Collections Office, and people still send back stuff they collected because of nightmares, and they had 3 deaths in their family in a week or whatever their voodoo is because they picked up pottery shards from the park. So yeah, we still get stuff shipped back from visitors. So it may be so prevalent to folks who live there that's not a second thought, but visitors who may be coming in and first time seeing something, they're going to grab it. And then
Yeah,
you
I think we need to put up
the whole
some
context.
signs,
So it's messaging.
because
It's
some of the
important, but
charts, they kind of give like dates. They use those charts to provide
Yep.
dates on when. So it would be good to just leave it as is, because further research will be done.
So is this would this route be a spiritual route, a pilgrimage route that have to be closed certain times of the year for any kind of ceremonial activity? Is that a management issue we have to deal with?
I don't see any ceremonials taking place there or any, not to where we're talking about.
Okay.
Further out, maybe, but
And I guess we, as we present this to the chapter and other groups, I guess we could learn more about that if we need to, right? If we're missing
yeah,
something, but it's a good question to ask.
you probably have to call it in.
Okay. All
We
right.
do teleconferences.
Okay. So, and we also, Josh talked about in an earlier meeting that we're kind of doing a phase 1 of Crown Point Pathways, and I'm just going to click on the other one so you get a sense of what we've looked at so far. Phase 1, phase 2 might be looking at additional adventure hiking, mountain biking opportunities that may be beyond the kind of developed community for residents and for any guests at the hotel, or, if you guys become a gateway to Chaco Canyon. So that, that's looking at other, a whole other phase 2. I know there's routes everywhere that would need assessment, and would they make good mountain bike routes and would be a good system. All right. So last thing I think we need to look at, Daniel, is maybe the connector trails on this one.
Yeah. For Teepee or for all 4 of them?
Well, just for Teepee for now, we know we're going to have a, kind of a connector on this backside. Are there other connectors that need to come from here, or this is pretty much a drive-up location, with the exception of this community? Maybe that'll answer the question.
Yeah. Well, I know it will probably have to have elements of both. Long term, it'd be nice if they connected somehow, if it could be either through that route we showed through the Elder Center to the left. So if that's a sidewalk that goes from the parking TP towards that, yeah, if that's something that's developed, or if it's just going the route which people tend to go, which is on the road, going right or going east and then connecting to the BIA track. But
so going around this way,
yeah, if it's just straight along the road, I don't think that's private land. There's houses there, so I don't think there's any way to cut through. So the main way would be taking that Chaco Road up and towards, yeah, that would probably be the other option. But Josh had mentioned that when he doesn't feel safe parking his car there at the church, so he'll often park at NTU and then walk there. So I'm not sure what route he takes, but I think those would be 2 viable options.
Well, I used to do that, but through the housing, behind the family housing, there's so many dogs that it's just not even worth it anymore to try it.
Yeah, right there. And then you go south right there, Attila. Yeah, there's the family housing. And then the NHA is
so
to the left.
You're coming south this way? Did you come through here, Josh? From the senior center and come down towards the post office?
Yeah. So yeah, but between the post office, the senior center, and that housing north of the senior center, there's so many dogs that I just don't. Even riding my bike, they all just run at you.
That's why I carry a pump on my bike still. Yeah. So maybe the connector route is really this connector here, if possible, that would get us down. That gets us down to the roadway, and you could have a pedestrian crossing here and a sidewalk improvement here to this trailhead. As a possibility, because you do have, people who might walk to the education center here and the church stuff. So is that feasible to have a sidewalk somewhere in here? we could throw it in just as a placeholder for conversation. We need a pedestrian crossing, which is going to be a ladder. It's the best graphic I could find. Okay. And then we'll clean this up a little bit more here to show the potential connector path to get down here to access that. So that kind of connects all three systems there almost, because we did show this connects over here. These two connect. And we got to find a way to get from here down to here and over. Okay. All right. So to review, we see benefits in having a dedicated parking spot somewhere in this area, if possible, for number of cars to access Teepee Trail. We see a need to maybe do some reroutes in here to take care of erosion problem, and then maybe do some land restoration work on some of these routes that we want to close that are in here. Potential picnic area just for a couple of spots. The base here, we see the potential for a walk-in trailhead access from this side. That wouldn't be advertised, but it would still be a vehicle barricade and a trailhead signage with maps and rules and regulations and curfews and whatever the community decides we want for the trails. We saw a need for an improved trail surface, maybe to this point, somewhere in here, a dedicated defined trail. And then from there up, it would be a class 3 trail. And then class 3, and then we'd find at this point a class 4 trail with signage at both places. So we need a sign down here. That's an unmaintained trail on this route. And we saw the potential for having a contemplative space here at the end and another unmaintained route out towards the teepees out this way that we indicate as such that is on your own. And we have to work on getting, we may only get to here. So we may have our interpretive signage all here at first until we have ability to go further and work through land agreements to get out here to a further spot. Then potential picnic area up on top here as well. And then interpretive elements on the whole trail could be kind of a Navajo through time. And then also potential stories about the road network, Poblitos and other Navajo sites along here, if we do other interpretive elements about that, which could fit into the interpretive on Navajos through time thing. The connections was connecting from senior center along this route as a connector improvement, potential sidewalk with a pedestrian crossing here to get to that parking area. What do we miss?
Connectors.
We miss anything?
I think the only thing that I would add is that maybe at the very end of wherever we develop, there's always the potential of continuing even further. As we were mentioning, it could go towards Mariano Lake, Dalton Pass, and I know when we're talking with other with the community watching awareness, it could be a opportunity to us do connectors between each of the various communities that surround Crown Point. For instance, they mentioned a trail that goes from Crown Point to Vicente. The trails that extend beyond Teepee could also serve as connectors where you don't have to drive. You could take a bike or whatever in between areas.
One of the potential is from going from the Teepee, going west all the way to N11 Road, the road that goes to Mariano Lake. I did that a few times. There's a lot of good scenery, good areas for. Actually, there's some roads back there that you can utilize. So that might be a potential for future hikes.
So I just got trail systems expansion, but potential to connect to Mariano Lake, and then other trails could also help us connect to other the other Navajo communities. So cool. So any other comments from the gallery?
No comments.
Any announcements or other words of wisdom from the gallery?
Where's that hotel being located?
Right here next to the Bashas.
Oh, okay, I see it.
So the idea, Josh, I'm not sure if you could highlight all 4 of our trails so far, Attila.
Yeah, I got
it. The idea was how to. Oh, you already got it up. I'm sorry. Is how do we connect these all? So we're not only connecting our town centers. How do you go from NTU to the Bashes or from the chapter house to the high school? That's kind of how we want to make these all linked together. So they have their own separate individual function, but the idea is that they all kind of work together and providing all of the things we've been discussing. And then, so this is going to be the initial skeleton of this model, but long term, we're discussing how we could then, since we do have a hotel, how do we extend this trail system out to Teepee? How do we make it go to different areas outside of this initial, unit of trails?
Okay.
And I have a KML, file for each one of these areas. So I think Daniel shared that with the group. If not, I can share with you directly, and then you can pop these in, and I've got notes in most of them on what we've been talking about. So for example, the darker blue is the class 2 improved trail. We actually even had a section of a barrier-free trail kind of connecting from the school up here to past NTU, past Dene College, and then sidewalk improvements to get to Bashes and the hospital complex, medical complex. So we have comments on all these different things that can help you understand how we got to where we are. And in here, there's a number of different colors that talks about a fitness loop or interpretive element loop. To help people understand what this thing's all about. We had identified a party area with a martini glass. That, things that we could identify more of them that we need to be aware of, but it's kind of what we've got so far on the system map.
That's the crow's nest.
Have to rename that for it. Okay. Yeah. Local legend stuff. And we, even last week, we made some more adjustments to this kind of a class 3 loop further down here. And this indicates a pipeline going across. So I'm trying to cut a good story. And then, this idea is this would all be put into the section of the plans, and here are the improvements for what the signs would say, and all connected to it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for trail development, would this also include, like, I guess, possible landscaping, like native plants, trees?
Yeah. So 3 examples. One is where all this flooding occurs through here. Can we do some plantings and maybe some green infrastructure and slow the flooding water down through here? Of course, that arrow needs to change direction once I learn that. And then up here we talked about, over here, this might be a little lighted loop that will have these pocket parks along the way that you could have trees, vegetation, shading, and some discovery play areas for kids. And then we saw also down at the BIA track having each one of the corners would have kind of a pocket park of sorts that might have a discovery play area or a fitness station, but also vegetation. So anywhere along the trails, we could incorporate more vegetation and trying to bring back some native vegetation. Absolutely.
Okay. One thing that'd be nice to add, like I don't know if it's possible, a bike repair station, like a built-in pump, we some tools on a chain.
So last week, interesting you bring that up. Last week, we were looking at what to do with this vacant space down here next to the BIA track, and so someone suggested a dog park, and then I also threw the idea that it'd be cool to have a pump track in the community. And I sent a video out. I don't know if that got shared, if people had a chance to look at those videos of the pump track, but you can get prefabbed pump tracks, which would, be goat head free and gravel free and glass free. They're modulars, you could move them around, but you could put a bike repair station near a pump track. It could go down here. It could also go up here by your the Dene Youth Center as another logical place. That made me think about, okay, who else has got pump tracks within Navajo Nation, and what community, what chapter has it? Dan, did I send you an email with that?
They said
Yes.
Navajo, yes, worked with Tisnos Bus.
Right. So there's precedent for bringing a pump track into a chapter, at least in Arizona. So there's no reason why we can't do a pump track. And there's grant funding for those things to, create it as a youth place. So if you want to build up mountain biking in your community, the kids got to learn somewhere. So, you start a chapter, teach got to ride on their BMX bike, their Walmart bike, and get them started in a pump track, and they can ride the community trails, and then they can eventually, graduate to more advanced riding outside the developed part of the community. So
that's a great idea.
Yeah, so that'd be cool to explore. The other thing I want to,
if not,
go ahead.
Track to, I think that pump track could work at the near the softball. They have that old abandoned basketball court, and I know that video said was importance of having one of those near a school. That could service that area right there. So they have the basketball
court. Right?
Yeah, that might be a place that works because it called for an even surface.
Right.
So that could be an additional partnership that we possibly seek with ODY.
Yeah, I think it could be very cool.
Now that you mentioned ODY, yesterday I interviewed one of their employees. You'll see on my Facebook. And I told him what we're doing with the trails. And he told me that they are planning a trail on the south side of that baseball field, the tennis court or basketball court. They're working on a trail design on the south side of that. So we need to start collaborating with them and see what their plans are.
So Daniel, can you reach out to that, find out what they're doing?
Yeah, I've talked with Jimmy before, but I don't have his contact. I'm not sure if Leonard could help set us up.
Yeah, I think Jimmy and Virgie Nelson are the ones that we need to talk to.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to join that conversation as well.
All right.
The last thing I want to throw out is Department of Interior, Park Service is, thinking more about tribal communities and gateways to national parks and youth employment and those sort of things. And I just saw a memo that made me think that we need to find a way to talk to the superintendent at Aztec Ruins. And, could we create a youth crew in Crown Point that could maybe be a halftime preservation training crew for Chaco Culture site, and the other halftime they're doing trail improvements on your system. So I'm going to start exploring that because I think that'd be one way to, get some of those federal funding that would support a youth crew employment and marketable skills in both preservation work and then trail skills. That's definitely marketable and ways to grow and move around in that world. So
Yeah,
I
every
think
summer
that could be kind of cool.
every summer their chapter gets summer employment youth employees. That could be that was mentioned in the focus group as being an option of putting them to work. I know Leonard just makes them pull weeds and do all those types of things all day, but if they had something like this, that might be a good option if it's an annual opportunity.
It's got to be serious outdoor
Chapter-
recreation conservation projects and not just busy work to
Yeah,
have these kids laugh and get involved.
Chapter PEP workers traveling is going to be a problem because liability issues.
Okay. So I think they're going to probably have to work through all that because I think most of these gateway communities with First Nations groups and others are not exactly within walking distance of the parks that are their ancestral lands. So that I'm sure they got to work through all those kind of issues on this. But I'll share that memo with you, Leonard, as soon as I'm able to, which should be pretty soon, and then maybe we'll have a conversation with the superintendent at Aztec and get her take on it as well. It could be a cool way to get some funding to start making these improvements and do training for them and bring in, because we do have good models nearby of the ancestral land corps at both Acoma and Zuni, and I think Hopi has ancestral land corps now as well, all managed by Conservation Legacy out of Durango. So there's some precedent already set up for these sort of things that I think you guys would be primed for. When we get this approved, you'd be primed to start working on these sort of things.
I know at Mesa Verde Balcony House and a few other places, they have those steps that you have to climb outwards on the cliffs. Maybe we can do something here.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably limitless of what they could do. They can even work on towards some of your museum ideas too. So lots of ideas. Okay, so wrapping up the conversation on Teepee Trail today. Anything else that we missed?
Wait, side note, Daniel, are you still there?
Yes,
Are you on campus right now?
I am.
Can you meet for like 5 minutes after the meeting? To talk in person?
Okay.
Is your office in the nursing building still?
The print shop.
Okay. All right, I'll head over there now. All right. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Josh, thanks for your support and input today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And I look forward to getting this hashed out. As I'm gonna talk to Daniel right now about But I'll see you guys later, and I'll send you the link to the KSM file. You said?
Yeah, I'm gonna clean it up tomorrow morning, and then I'll share the link with the whole group. And I'll get you the other ones as well.
Okay, and then I'll walk the trail probably about 2 p.m. and I'll give feedback tomorrow evening.
Oh, terrific. Okay, and then so we have nothing scheduled for next week because I'm on leave, but I think we will come back the following Tuesday. And Josh alluded today, what kind of signage, what kind of benches, what kind of structures are most appropriate for your trail network? So, you know, there's a bunch of suggestions and ideas in that in the workbook and examples. I think we should have a conversation with a lot of community members on what makes the most sense. I mean, do we want store-bought benches, or do you want to use a big slab of sandstone or a big slab of something else or a big log for your benches? So let's have a conversation about it on the next meeting.
October 6th at 3.
Okay.
Over the next 2 weeks, by that point, I'll have a lot of the document put together of our work plan, just kind of the background. So I'll be able to present that, and I could probably even mock up some of the things you had sent, Attila. So I'll try to have things ready for the discussion on the 6th. But afterwards, I think we'll be then positioned nicely to start putting together that action plan, which would be our final deliverable and going forth and getting this done, you know, so.
Right. I think you're right. So we're on the right track. Sally and all the UNM folks, appreciate you guys joining in again today.
Yeah, thank you for including us. We appreciate it. We're learning a lot, and we enjoy being a part of it. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll share with you guys what I learned about this youth thing too, and the pump track stuff, and as other communities are sure eligible as well. So keep moving forward.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.